How dark can it get and still be a PG? Sonic 3 writers Pat Casey and Josh Miller on adapting Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is taking the world by storm, with fans and critics alike praising the trilogy ender as possibly the franchise's best installment yet. Sonic, Ben Schwartz, and Shadow's, Keanu Reeves, crowd-pleasing story is already proving to be a big win for Paramount and Sega, and that success is already promising bigger and better things for the series. On the very day that the third film released, Paramount announced that Sonic the Hedgehog 4 is officially in development, set to debut in 2027. Having already sung the praises of Sonic the Hedgehog 3 in my review of the film, we at Collider recently had the spectacular opportunity to speak with two of the biggest players in the ongoing Sonic saga, those being writers Pat Casey and Josh Miller. Casey and Miller took the time to discuss how the franchise has grown into a major blockbuster series, as well as write for A-list stars like Keanu Reeves and Jim Carrey. Additionally, the acclaimed duo also discussed what's next for them, including the next chapter in Sonic the Hedgehog 4, the anticipated holiday action sequel Violent Night 2, and their next game adaptation It Takes Two. Josh Miller and Pat Casey described the first movie's Sonic redesign as an interesting miracle. Collider. First off, congrats on the movie. It's an absolute blast. I absolutely loved it, and probably my favorite of the three so far, and it seems a lot of people are agreeing, given that Sonic 4 has already been greenlit. My first question is, was there ever a sense that the Sonic movies would become as big and as popular as they have become? Josh Miller. Yeah. I mean, on the first one, you're just trying to get that movie made, hoping people will like it. I mean, we thought it was good, and we knew, obviously, the Sonic franchise before the movies had been around for decades, so clearly there's staying power in the characters of Sonic, but, yeah, I don't think any of us necessarily could have predicted that by Part 3, it would have already gotten as huge as it is. Casey. I mean, the studio, we never got the sense that they really thought that this had potential to become gigantic. If they did, they would never have hired us in the first place. Collider. One of the many reasons why I think the Sonic films have become one of the earliest and best examples of this sort of video game adaptation renaissance that we're in was the first impression of the first movie led to a lot of feedback when it came to Sonic's design, but it led to something pretty unprecedented, which was a complete overhaul that gave us the version that we all know and love now. When that redesign for the first film happened, did you have to retool elements of the script, or was it kind of just as is? Casey. There were no reshoots at all. All the live-action stuff remained exactly the same. So the story overall remained pretty much the same. We did come back in and retool some stuff, especially the very beginning of the movie. Miller. Yeah, I was gonna say it wasn't even that changing the design necessitated retooling anything in the script. It was more that we got to, because on any movie, including the sequels, there's always a release date. And filmmakers, I'm sure, Jeff Fowler and Toby Asher and everyone would say the same thing, you never actually have as much time as you wish you could have. But when they bumped back the release date a few months, just because they needed time to be able to re-render certain things, that just gave the whole production more time to keep retooling with the script. So it's all things we probably would have done if the release date had already been in February of 2020 the whole time. So it was kind of actually an interesting miracle, in a way, to get this extra time that you almost never get. Casey and Miller agree that Keanu Reeves is the perfect Shadow. Collider. Sounds like all the pieces fell into place perfectly for that, and obviously it paid off. Moving on to Sonic 3, the film introduces Shadow the Hedgehog, of course, voiced by a perfectly cast Keanu Reeves. Since speed has been referenced a few times in the first two films, I imagine you're fans. What was it like when you got the news that Keanu was cast as Shadow? Miller. I mean, it's crazy, like if anything, we thought it was so cool, when they had to get his permission to use the clip of Speed in Part 1. So even just that minor connection, like when we learned that we're like, oh man, Keanu knows about the movie? That's so cool. And he said yes. That's even cooler. Casey. We were just excited that we thought, like, Maybe this meant that Keanu would watch the first movie, haha. Miller. Yeah, but I think as any Sonic superfan on the internet knows, Keanu has kind of been a fan choice to play Shadow for a while. Plus, I think he was all of ours, as fans, choice as well. So what's when we heard that, like he'd agreed to do it, it just, this nice feeling that the kind of like the stars are aligning for this franchise, and things kind of keep working out the way you hope they will. Casey. And it's just perfect because Shadow obviously bears some similarities to John Wick in terms of what they're going through, but also some similarities to Neo in terms of his ability set. It's crazy. Collider. Well, that actually factors perfectly into my next question. When you were writing Shadow, was Keanu someone you just always had in mind for the part? Even though you obviously don't know who will be cast when you're writing the character. Miller. Yeah, we certainly had his voice in our minds. I think whether we wanted to or not, that was the talk even before starting on part 3. Casey. We had that discussion early with Jeff and Toby, of like, so who are we going to get for Shadow? And we're kind of like, I think Keanu? If Keanu will do it. So we were like, go right into Keanu. Perfect. Miller. Yeah, whereas, like on Sonic 2, the internet had not already been fan casting Idris Elba as Knuckles. Obviously he was perfect, but yeah, that had less of a specific voice in our brain while writing it.